I brought my 3-month-old son and husband home for Christmas. But my 10-year-old niece, Claudia, and her friend threw my son from an upstairs window. I frantically scooped him up, my mind screaming for the hospital, but it was too late. He died right there. Because Claudia was so young, she faced no punishment. The judge ordered Claudia's family to pay $800,000, but Claudia twisted it, claiming I was trying to ruin their lives. I didn't want compensation. I just wanted my baby back. I sobbed until my chest felt ripped open, demanding justice. My husband, Owen, and his mother, Mrs. Miller, just lashed out at me. Claudia is just a child. Are you really going to destroy her life just because your son is gone? My quest for revenge was futile, and eventually, a heart attack claimed me that winter. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on Christmas Day. I immediately called my parents and had them take Kaylin away. But this time, Claudia still killed a baby. Whose baby was it? The moment I'd sent Kaylin off with my parents and stepped into Mrs. Miller's yard, a deafening crash echoed in my ears. Bang! A tightly swaddled baby hit the tiled floor. Blood slowly stained the blanket red. I stared, frozen, then lifted my gaze. Upstairs, Claudia gave me a defiant look before she vanished. Owen and Mrs. Miller rushed out at the sound. Mrs. Miller screamed, her legs buckling beneath her. Owen staggered over, trembling, and glanced at the infant. Cassie, the baby isn't breathing. I couldn't even bring myself to look. I sprinted upstairs. Claudia had locked herself in a room. I kicked the door hard. Claudia, open this door. Who did you throw down? There was no answer from inside, but I could hear her and her friend giggling. Claudia, what if they call the cops? My mom won't hit me, will she? Nah, we didn't mean to, right? Besides, the police don't arrest minors. Those fearless words pierced my ears like thorns. I couldn't stop trembling. I slammed my entire weight against the wooden door. Get out here. Do you have any idea what you've done? This is murder. Owen, who had just arrived, quickly grabbed me. His eyes were bloodshot. Cassie, calm down. Don't scare them. My eyes, filled with pure hatred, locked onto him. It was just like the last life. Our son was dead, and he was still worried about scaring Claudia. Mrs. Miller wiped away tears. Claudia went too far this time, but you don't have to be so unforgiving. The baby was only 3 months old. He's gone, so he's gone. You two can just try for another. I froze, utterly stunned. It took a moment for their words to register. They thought it was my son who had died, but I had just given my son to my parents, whose tiny body was lying downstairs. Owen came up and hugged me, swearing, Cassie, I promise I'll get justice for our son, but Claudia is still young and doesn't understand. Before he could finish, I shoved him away. What do you mean? If she's so clueless, why doesn't she jump herself? With that, I grabbed a chair and slammed it violently against the door. The wooden door rattled and groaned, shaking the entire house. Claudia, get out here, or I'll smash this door down. How dare she kill someone and get away with it? Even if it wasn't my child who died today, I would still fight for justice for him. Seeing how hard I was hitting it, Claudia yelled from inside. Stop smashing. If you keep going, I'll jump. I was panting from the effort. I turned, rushed to the kitchen and grabbed a knife, hacking it into the door. The blade bit deep into the wood, stuck fast. Jump then. If you don't, I'm coming in there and I'll kill you myself. Claudia couldn't stand the pressure. She opened the door, a look of impatience on her face. Who did you throw down? She tilted her head, swaying casually. Your son, who else? I slapped her across the face. Smack, her head snapped to the side. Claudia's eyes immediately filled with tears. She clutched her cheek, disbelief warring on her face. How dare you hit me? My own mom doesn't even hit me, you bitch. I slapped her again. It's because your mom doesn't hit you that you turned into an animal. Then I grabbed her collar, snarling through gritted teeth. I'm asking you one more time. Who did you throw down? Claudia quieted down, still clutching her face. It was your son, but I didn't mean to. I just wanted to see what would happen if he fell. I didn't think he'd actually die. I peered into the room. The window was open, letting in a chilling blast of cold air. Claudia's friend was cowering by the bed, too scared to say a word. They were old enough for elementary school. How could they not know the danger? Owen tried to reason with me. Claudia has already apologized, Cassie. You've let out your anger. Let's just bury the baby. The absurdity of it all struck me. A human life was gone, and an apology was all it took? Mrs. Miller rushed over and tightly hugged Claudia, tenderly stroking her face, murmuring, You hit her so hard, her face is all red. Her face was only red from my slap, but that baby had lost his entire life. I roughly pushed Mrs. Miller away, then grabbed Claudia's hair and dragged her toward the window. You didn't know what would happen if he fell, right? Why don't you try it yourself? Claudia screamed, terrified, struggling against me. No. I don't want to. I'll die if I fall. You'll go to jail if I die. To jail. So she knew about jail, yet she still did it. For 2 lifetimes, I couldn't comprehend how a child's mind could be so wicked. A sharp pain shot up my arm as Owen forcefully pulled me away. The momentum sent me crashing headfirst into the wall. A streak of crimson liquid ran down the plaster. Owen shielded Claudia, his face etched with disgust. Are you ever going to stop? Our son is dead. Why are you picking a fight with a child? Why didn't you watch him better? Both Owen and Mrs. Miller stood in front of Claudia, watching me defensively. In my last life, I finally understood. They were the true family, bound by blood. My 3-month-old son, and I meant nothing. I clutched my forehead, my hand shaking as I pulled out my phone to call the police. But Owen kicked my phone, sending it flying. This is a family matter. What are you calling the police for? Claudia isn't 18 yet. It's useless to call the police anyway. I pushed myself up against the wall, looking at him with utter disappointment. Your son is dead, and you don't care? Seeing the blood on my forehead, a flicker of remorse crossed Owen's eyes. Cassie, we can always have more children. But I only have one niece. I only have one niece. The sentence hung in the freezing air of the hallway, more brutal than the winter wind howling through the open window. Owen looked at me with a mixture of defiance and exhaustion, wiping a speck of his own blood from his lip. He truly believed he was taking the moral high ground, choosing the living child over the dead infant, choosing family unity over justice. I stared at him, and suddenly, the rage that had been boiling my blood turned into something colder, something sharp and crystalline. I started to laugh. It began as a low chuckle and rose to a hysterical shriek. It terrified them. Mrs. Miller took a step back, clutching her chest. Owen frowned, stepping forward to grab my shoulders again. Cassie, have you lost your mind? Stop laughing. It's disrespectful to the dead. I slapped his hands away, the force of it stinging my palms. Disrespectful? You're the one who just said we could make another one. You're the one covering up a murder because you only have one niece. I walked over to the window. The cold air bit at my face. Down below, on the patio, the small bundle lay motionless. The snow around it was undisturbed, save for the dark halo spreading beneath the fabric. You're right, Owen. I said, my voice dead calm. You do only have one niece. And you love her so much, you're willing to let her kill. She didn't mean to. But here is the thing, I interrupted, turning to face them. A cruel smile played on my lips. I sent Kaylin away with my parents 20 minutes ago. My parents' car left the driveway before I even walked into the yard. The silence that followed was absolute. Owen's face went slack. What? Mrs. Miller blinked, her brain struggling to process the information. No, I saw the baby. I saw the blanket. You saw a baby, I corrected. But Kaylin is currently on the highway, probably sleeping in his car seat. I didn't bring him inside because I knew this house was a death trap. I pointed a trembling finger toward the window. So, if my son is safe in a car, whose baby is lying on your patio, Owen? The color drained from Owen's face so fast he looked like a corpse. Mrs. Miller let out a strangled gasp. Mark and Sarah, Mrs. Miller whispered, her voice shaking. They dropped off little Leo early because they had to pick up the cake. They put him in the guest crib. Mark, Owen's older brother, and Sarah his wife. Their 4-month-old son, Claudia's baby brother. The realization hit them like a freight train. Claudia hadn't just killed a cousin she barely knew. She had thrown her own baby brother out of the window. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. It seems Claudia was bored. She wanted to see if Leo would bounce. No. Mrs. Miller screamed, a sound of pure, guttural horror. She scrambled past me, nearly tripping down the stairs, wailing as she ran toward the back door. Owen stood frozen. His mouth opened and closed. The family unity he had preached seconds ago was crumbling. It was easy to ask me to forgive and forget when it was my child. It was easy to call it an accident when the victim was replaceable in his eyes. But this was the golden grandson, the heir to the Miller name. Lao. Owen whispered. He rushed to the window looking down. When he saw the specific pattern of the swaddle, blue bears, not the yellow ducks I used, he retched, dry heaving onto the floor. I looked at Claudia. She was still standing by the dresser, looking annoyed. She didn't look horrified. She didn't look sad. She looked inconvenienced. Is it Leo? She asked, picking at a loose thread on her sweater. Oops. I echoed. Mom's gonna be mad, she muttered. But he cries too much anyway. He's annoying. I pulled my phone out from where it had slid across the floor. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. I dialed 911. Owen turned around, his eyes wild. Cassie, don't what? I asked, pressing the call button. Don't call the police on a double murderer? Oh wait, she only succeeded once this time. Think about Mark. Think about Sarah. Owen pleaded, sweat beading on his forehead. If the police come, it destroys everything. We need to figure out how to tell them. I'm not calling for them, I said into the receiver as the operator picked up. I'm calling because there is a corpse in your backyard and a monster in your guest room. The police were 5 minutes out. But Mark and Sarah were closer. I heard their car pull into the driveway just as Mrs. Miller was howling outside, cradling the lifeless bundle in the snow. Her screams were primal, animalistic. I walked down the stairs, calm amidst the chaos. I felt detached, like I was watching a movie I had already seen. Only this time, the ending was different. The front door opened. Mark walked in laughing, shaking snow off his coat. Sarah followed, holding a massive chocolate cake box. We got the extra dark chocolate. Sarah announced, beaming. Is Leo awake? Did he behave for Auntie Cassie? The house was silent, except for the faint, muffled sound of Mrs. Miller screaming in the backyard. Sarah's smile faltered. Owen? Cassie. Owen appeared at the top of the stairs. He looked like a ghost. He couldn't speak. He just pointed toward the back door. Sarah dropped the cake. The box smashed, frosting splattering against the hardwood. She ran. I stood in the kitchen and watched through the sliding glass door. I watched Sarah fall to her knees in the snow. I watched Mark try to pull his mother away, then freeze as he saw the face of his son. I watched the life fracture out of them, the same way it had fractured out of me in my previous life. But this time, I felt no pity for the bystanders, because I knew what they would say if it had been Kaylin. The sirens began to wail in the distance. Owen came into the kitchen. He poured himself a drink, his hands shaking so hard the whiskey splashed over the rim. You didn't have to call them, he hissed at me. We could have handled this as a family. Like you handled it last time? I asked. He paused. What? Nothing, I said. I'm leaving, Owen. You can't leave. The police are coming. I'll give my statement. And then I'm divorcing you. Cassie, be reasonable. My brother just lost his son. You're making this about you? It became about me when you told me my son's life mattered less than your niece's comfort. I spat. You picked a side, Owen. You picked the murderer. You don't get to switch teams now that the victim has changed. The police separated us. The house became a crime scene. Mark was sedated by paramedics in the ambulance. He had tried to smash his head against the brick wall of the house in grief. Sarah was catatonic, clutching the blue blanket, refusing to let go of the body until the coroner forcibly removed it. And Claudia? Claudia sat in the living room with a female officer, swinging her legs. I sat in the dining room giving my statement to a detective. I heard a crash, I said clearly. I ran upstairs. Claudia and her friend were laughing. She told me she threw the baby to see if he would bounce. She admitted it to me, to her grandmother, and to my husband. The detective, a grim-faced man named Officer Reynolds, took notes. And the parents were not home. They were running an errand. The baby was sleeping. And your husband? He tried to stop you from calling us? I looked at Owen, who was sitting at the kitchen table with his head in his hands. He told me it was a family matter. I said loudly. He said Claudia is just a child and we shouldn't ruin her life. He said that when he thought it was my son who was dead. Officer Reynolds paused, his pen hovering. He looked at Owen with undisguised disgust. Then, the chaos truly started. Sarah stormed into the house. She had broken out of her shock. She looked like a demon. Her hair was wild, her eyes bloodshot. She didn't go for Owen. She went for Mrs. Miller. You were watching him. Sarah screamed, shoving her mother-in-law. You said you were watching him. I was in the kitchen. Mrs. Miller sobbed. Claudia said she wanted to see the baby. Claudia. Sarah spun around, scanning the room. She saw her 10-year-old daughter sitting on the sofa. Sarah rushed over. The female officer stood up to block her, but Sarah stopped 5 feet away. Why? Sarah choked out. Claudia, he was your brother. Why? Claudia looked at her mother. She took a bite of a cookie the officer had given her. He was annoying, Claudia said with her mouth full. And you guys always pay attention to him. I wanted to see if he could fly like in the cartoons. He didn't. Sarah let out a sound that wasn't human. She lunged. It took 3 officers to hold her back. I'll kill her. Sarah screamed, thrashing in the officer's grip. She's a monster. I'll kill her. Owen stood up. Sarah. Stop. She's your daughter. She killed my son. Sarah shrieked, spitting in Owen's face. She killed Leo. She's sick. Owen pleaded, ever the peacemaker for the wrong side. She doesn't understand. She understands. I cut in. My voice sliced through the noise. She told me she knew she would go to jail if she did it. She did it anyway because she thought you would protect her. And she was right, wasn't she, Owen? You tried to protect her. Mark stumbled in from outside, the sedative fighting a losing battle against his adrenaline. He looked at Claudia. Then he looked at me. What did she say? Mark asked, his voice gravel. She said she knew about jail. I told him. She knew it was wrong. She just didn't care. Mark looked at his daughter. The love in his eyes died, replaced by a cold, horrific void. Officer, Mark said. I want to press charges. Mark, Mrs. Miller wailed. She's 10. She's your baby. My baby is dead. Mark roared, the sound shaking the walls. That thing on the couch isn't a child. Take her away. I never want to see her again. The divorce was swift. I moved back in with my parents that night, clutching Kaylin so tight he squirmed. I didn't sleep for 3 days. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the thud. But I was alive. Kaylin was alive. The Millers, however, were in hell. Because Claudia was 10, the legal system was tricky. In many cases, a child that young wouldn't face true incarceration. But because of the severity of the crime, the premeditation, she admitted to planning it to the psychiatrists, and the testimony of her own parents, the state did not go easy. She was diagnosed with conduct disorder with callous unemotional traits, the precursor to psychopathy. She was remanded to a high-security juvenile psychiatric facility until the age of 21. But the real punishment wasn't legal. It was social. The story broke. 10-year-old throws newborn brother from window on Christmas. The town turned on them. Owen tried to contact me a month later. I met him at a coffee shop, only to hand him the signed divorce papers. He looked terrible. He had lost weight, his skin was gray, and he smelled like stale alcohol. Mark and Sarah are getting a divorce, he told me, staring at his black coffee. Sarah can't look at Mark without thinking of Claudia. Mark can't forgive Sarah for raising a monster. Mom had a stroke last week from the stress. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, feeling absolutely nothing. Cassie, I miss you. I miss Kaylin. I was in shock that day. I didn't mean what I said. You meant every word, Owen, I said, sliding the papers toward him. You said, we can just have another one. Do you remember? He flinched. I was trying to comfort you. No. You were trying to erase the inconvenience of my grief. You wanted to sweep a murder under the rug because it was easier than confronting your niece. I stood up. You are an enabler, Owen. You and your mother created that monster by never telling her no. And now she's eaten you all alive. I have no one left, he whispered. You have your niece, I said, cold as ice. Go visit her. I hear the visitation hours are strictly monitored. Part 5. 5 years later. I stood in the park, watching Kaylin climb the jungle gym. He was 5 now, laughing, bright-eyed and kind. He was chasing a butterfly, careful not to touch its wings. Mom, look, he shouted. I waved. I see you, baby. My phone buzzed. It was a news alert. I usually ignored them, but the name caught my eye. Miller family tragedy continues. Grandmother found deceased. I clicked the link. Mrs. Miller had died alone in a nursing home. No family had visited her in years. I scrolled down. There was a related article. Father of child killer commits suicide. Mark had never recovered. The guilt of knowing his daughter killed his son had eaten him hollow. Sarah had moved to Europe, changed her name, and vanished. And Owen? I heard rumors. He lost his job. He drank. He was the pathetic uncle of the Christmas killer. He lived in that big, empty house where the baby died, surrounded by ghosts. I put my phone away. Kaylin ran up to me, holding a flower. For you, Mommy. Thank you, sweetie. I kissed his forehead. Can we get ice cream? We can get anything you want. I took his hand. His grip was warm and strong. I thought about the previous life, the pain of the fall, the silence of the grave, the injustice that had stopped my heart. I looked at the blue sky. Justice hadn't come from a judge's gavel. It hadn't come from a lawsuit. It had come from the truth. Claudia was locked away in a concrete room, medicated and monitored, screaming at walls that wouldn't move. Her family was ash. And I was here, buying mint chocolate chip ice cream for the boy who survived. Mommy, why are you smiling? Kaylin asked. Because, I said, squeezing his hand. The monsters are gone, Kaylin. And we won. Epilogue, the letter. 2 years later, a letter arrived at my parents' house. It had no return address, but the handwriting was jagged, frantic. It was from Owen. I almost threw it away, but curiosity got the better of me. Cassie, I know I have no right to write to you. I just wanted you to know. I visited Claudia yesterday. She's 17 now. She asked about you. She asked about Kaylin. She smiled, Cassie. She smiled and said, it should have been him. The other baby didn't bounce right. I left and I'm never going back. You were right. She isn't human. I see her face every time I close my eyes. I see Leo. I see the son we could have had. I am selling the house. I'm donating the money to a children's hospital. It won't fix anything, I know. I hope Kaylin is happy. I hope he never knows who his father is. Goodbye, Owen. I stood over the kitchen trash can. I struck a match. I held the corner of the letter and watched the flame eat the paper. The words curled into black ash. Claudia, Leo, Owen, regret. I dropped the burning remnant into the bin and watched it fade. Mom, Kaylin called from the living room. The movie is starting. Coming. I called back. I washed the ash off my hands. The water ran clear. The past was dead. The door was closed. I walked into the living room. sat on the couch, and pulled my son into my arms. We were safe. And that was the only revenge that mattered.